It's a general rule that we should never ever update the state object directly inside a reducer. So, why is that rule? What will happen if we do so? Will it give an error, or will it suddenly fail? Will it not send the updates to the React component? So, hi guys, my name is Raj, and in this video, we'll see exactly why we should never ever update the state object directly inside a reducer, just like we are doing so here. Okay, so let's start. So here, as you can see that this is, I have taken a very simple example of a reducer that is taking state and action as argument, and based on a particular action type, it's updating the state directly, just like this, and it's returning that state. So to understand why this is a bad practice, why we should never ever do this, let's just go to Redux source code and understand. So I'll just go to GitHub Redux and I'll open the source code of Redux. And in this, we'll open this combined reducers.js file and navigate to the very bottom. So this is the code which we are interested in, and this is the code that will explain why it's not a good idea to update the state object directly inside a reducer. So let's understand this line by line. So it starts with a hash change variable that is initially assigned to false, and then there is a next state object which is an empty object. So there is a loop. It loops through all the reducer keys. So right now in our example there is only one reducer, so it will have only one key. So somewhere we must be using it like this: export default combined reducers. Of course we have to import the combined reducers, but just for the sake of demo I'm not doing that. So let's say this is name reducer and it's update name reducer, or we can say name reducer key. So we may have more reducers whose keys will appear here. So in this case we have only one key, and so it is looping through, it will loop through only that one time, because we have only one key here. So in this we are finding the key and the associated reducer. So here the key is this name reducer key, and the reducer function is this guy, which is this function. And then we are finding out the previous state for the key. So for this particular key, the previous state is this state. So the previous state is the state with which the reducer is called initially. So we are calling our reducer with this state, and this is the previous state. So we found out the previous state for the key, and then we are calling the reducer with the previous state and action, just like we're doing here. This is the previous state, this is the action, and whatever is the output we are assigning it to the next state for the key. So this is the previous state, and after it goes inside this if block, the state has been updated here with the name property, and it will return that state, right? So this next state for the key will contain this new value, right? So we can ignore this part for the time being. Let's just go here. So here it's just assigning the next state for the key, then the new state that we have got inside this object. Now this is the most interesting part which is doing here. So this it will do for all of the reducer keys, and here we have only one key. So initially the hash change is false, and now it checks whether the next state for the key and previous state for the key is same or not. So if it is not same, that means the state has changed, and so it sets the hash change to true. Okay, but what's happening in our case? Let's see. So previous state of the for the key points to this state object. Okay, and we updated the same state object with a new value, but we return the same state. So means it is referring to the same state object in the memory, right? So this previous state for the key and next state for the key, it refers exactly to the same object in the memory. And when this comparison happens, so this compares by the memory location. So it checks and finds out that okay, this is the very same object. That means this returns false because this is pointing to the same memory location. So it, although our state has been changed after this reducer call, but still since it's pointing to the same memory location, this evaluation returns false, and that means this hash changed value is set to false. And since we have only one reducer, the call will come out, and here after it is done with all the reducer keys, it will check, okay, if hash change has been true, then return the next state, otherwise return the previous state. Okay, so since in our case we mutated the same object, we added a new property, or we updated the property in the exactly same object. So here this hash change is false, and since it is false, it will return the old state. Now, since it has returned the old state, the React will think that okay, this is the very old state that I'm returning, and there are no changes. That means there are no changes, so it will not notify the React component about it. And since React component is not notified, it will not update the value wherever this name property is being used. So that's the reason. It boils down to this reason. It's boiled down to this particular code, uh, why we don't mutate the state object directly inside the reducer. Because if you mutate it directly and return the state, it points to the same location in the memory, and since it's point to the same location in the memory, this condition, the next state and the previous state, this condition evaluates to false because this is the same location. So this is equal. So that's why the hash change is set to false, and it returns a very old state. So that is the reason. And now since we understood the reason why we should never ever do this, the correct way of doing is updating the state is like this. So we just have to return it just like this. So we'll just destructure the state, which is the old state, and that old state we will overwrite the value of the property we are interested in, which is name, and we'll say action.payload.name. And we can just get rid of this guy right here. So what you're going to do is we are returning a new object which will have a different location, which will have a new location in the memory, new address. So when this is assigned to the next state, and when this comparison happens, like next state for the key and previous state of the key, since previous state was pointing to this state object and next state for the key is pointing to this new object, this evaluation will return true because those are not equal. Hash change will be set to true, and since hash change is set to true, it will return the next state, and since the state is it's returning the new state, Redux will notify the React components and it will update the value. So I hope I was able to make it clear why it's not a good idea to mutate the state inside a reducer directly. Thanks for watching.